Welcome back, my students, to a brand new episode of Comic Class. In today's lesson, guys, will be looking at Zeb Wells and John Romita Jr.'s The Amazing Spider-Man issue number 4. And yeah, today is a pretty fun issue to talk about, so without further ado, let's jump right into today's story. Let's go. So this story basically starts off with Mary Jane basically teaching her daughter like a lullaby bedtime song, it sounds like. So while she's doing that, Mary Jane's daughter basically says that there's a lady in the window, which Mary Jane jokingly thinks that she's making it up. But when she turns around, she sees that Felicia Hardy, aka the Black Cat, is there. And Mary Jane basically tells her that this is kind of like bedtime, so she probably shouldn't be here. But Felicia basically is asking if she's heard anything about Peter and the trouble that he's basically in right now, and the rumors that she's been hearing on what exactly has happened to him with Tombstone, basically capturing him and stuff like that. But she doesn't give Mary Jane the details and says that she'll figure out what she can on her own, since it seems like Mary Jane doesn't know anything to do with what Peter's going through at the moment. So she basically makes her get away, basically, and makes her leave. So we jump into seeing what is happening with Peter as he's basically being chained down by these type of like iron chains, and this is basically cuffed his arms as well as his legs. And I had a problem with this scene because something that Spider-Man easily should be able to break out of, but for some reason he's not able to. Maybe this is a type of like willpower thing scenario, because as we see later on in the issue, he easily is able to do feats way greater than this in strength. But we get to see that one of the gunmen is basically going to try killing Peter whenever the guy named Kareem, the robbery, the goon that Spider-Man saved from like a burning car that was about to explode in, I believe it was issue 1 or 2, basically saves Peter's life, and he is able to basically distract the guards long enough and attack them in order to get the key to unlock Peter's basically cuffs as he gets the key from one of the goons that he knocks out. And he basically tells Peter that, Tombstone's people haven't started mastering the people yet on that block. That we heard about the plan of Tombstone basically trying to sabotage the Rose in the crime scene basically in New York City, and that he's gonna pretend that the Rose is the person that had him and his goons basically murder and massacre an entire city block of people. But so Peter goes off to try to stop and thwart Tombstone's plans to sabotage the Rose and his gained empire. So we get to see that the bunny girl basically finds Randy Robinson, as we saw in the last issue, and has brought him to Tombstone. And Tombstone basically says that he has some ends that he needs to loosen up, and that he tells him that Randy wants to marry Janice. So now Robbie Robinson knows, basically, and that was pretty cool. But going back into what Peter is doing, basically Peter arrives to where the massacre supposedly is about to start, and he breaks in through one of the safes, or a type of like armored vehicle, or I guess it's an armored plated door that Peter just completely destroys as he goes through it, which, like I said, I have a problem with him not being able to break through the cuffs. He even made a joke about the cuffs maybe being made out of adamantium, if anyone asks. But yeah, for some reason, the continuity right there in Spider-Man's strength level, you could say he's getting a power boost due to strength level, basically a strength boost due to the people in danger that he needs to save, and he knows that this is do or die. But it seemed like a pretty serious situation with the gun being pointed to his head and his spider sense basically not triggering or something like that. So I did have a problem with that, but overall I really enjoyed this panel and these set of panels basically with Spider-Man basically breaking through the steel or the metal armored door. A fantastic panel. And the action sequences are pretty cool too, with them trying to shoot Spider-Man and him using his webbing to basically web up their guns and then knock their heads together. Really interesting fight scene. We get to see that Janice and Robbie, or Randy, I always get those mixed up. Janice and Randy basically are on their way to somewhere, basically get out of town, as I think Tombstone had told Janice in the last issue to get out of town. So she was taking Randy with her, but Spider-Man basically calls Randy as Peter and tells him that he needs to get to where Tombstone is because he's got Randy's dad basically. So Randy basically is getting Janice to basically go take him to where her father is so that he can check on his father, make sure that Tombstone's not trying to like kill him or anything like that. And while Randy and Janice are going to find Tombstone basically and find out if Robbie Robinson basically is fine, Randy's dead, we get to see that Spider-Man is utilizing his webbing to basically web up a ton of the goons while he's talking to Randy on the phone. And I really did enjoy how John Romita Jr. drew this entire issue. The action sequences were fantastic, which I think is a very common thing through what I've read of John Romita Jr. He's done a very good job with his action sequences way back then in the early 2000s when he did his run as well, way back then, as well as the stuff in the, I think, like 80s or 90s. That was some good stuff with the Hobgoblin as well. So I think he's a very well-known Spider-Man artist as far as action sequences go. Even if you don't like his art style too much, he does do a really good job with his action. And the way that he utilizes Spider-Man's webbing ability so much in this issue, I just really enjoy it. It's not something we see a lot of in a lot of Spider-Man stories with him utilizing his webbing this much and just using his agility. And he slams an entire metal door before a ton of more goons are able to come in. So I thought that was really cool, to help the goons that he's basically tying up. And eventually he grabs a ton of the goons that are still left over, which I'm guessing are the ones that almost came through the metal door, and he webs them up, and then he just takes them out one by one, basically, and comes crashing from the ceiling, basically, and starts taking them out. We also get to see the lights getting cut off for him in a dark room, and we get these really cool panels showing him in the dark with his suit, basically blending in with the darkness, and he basically takes out these goons that walk in this dark room, so that was really cool. We get to see Randy and Janice basically arrive, and Janice basically tells Randy that he probably should wait in the car while she goes to confront her dad to make sure that nothing bad happens to him, because he's kind of just like a regular human. But he basically runs into there, as she calls his name, yelling Randy. And we get to see that Spider-Man's basically making his way to the main office to where the Rose or Tombstone basically should be. So we get to see basically, Tombstone's men basically should be. So Spider-Man meets his way as Randy meets his way to find his dad. And we get to see tons of goons. Basically, these two goons do gunfire, and they're not able to hit Spider-Man. And he basically defeats them and knocks them out. And we get to see that Randy does make it to where his dad is at, as well as Tombstone. And we get to see that while that's happening, that Peter arrives to where Tombstone's goon is supposed to be, and he's surprised to see that Tombstone's goon is basically dressed up to be the Rose, as he says that Tombstone really went all his way out to basically make one of his goons wear the Rose's outfit. But whenever Spider-Man knocks him out before, even dodges one of his gun fires, basically real fast, kind of like at a point blank range almost. And when he knocks the dude out, he basically takes off his mask, realizes that this actually is Richard Fisk, which is the real Rose, and that he's not in Harlem, basically. And it turns out, as Randy finds his father, that his father's actually doing okay, and that he mentions that Tombstone told him about Randy basically wanting to marry Janice, that him and Tombstone are basically happy, that now they're going to be related and stuff like that. And it's revealed to us as Janice goes to Tombstone, and Randy's very surprised on Robbie basically not being in danger, and start putting the pieces together that as Janice basically tells Tombstone that don't hurt him, basically, as she says, don't hurt him, Dad, and that Tombstone says, relax, Janice, I don't do that anymore. And it turns out, as she asks him what exactly is he doing, they basically says that he put the stuff that he needed to do, like the dirty stuff, which is taking out the Rose's game as well as the Rose himself. They left it in better hands, and it's revealed to us at the very end, the final page, as this is all going down, that Peter actually took out and did the job for Tombstone, as he played a massive power move and tricked Spider-Man into taking out the Rose and his game, basically. So now Peter's definitely going to be pissed, and he's going to go after Tombstone probably in the next issue. And that's how the issue ends, with Tombstone basically laughing as Peter's misery, basically, as Peter has done his job for him, and he's basically been tricked by Tombstone in, basically completing the job for him and doing the job, basically, that Tombstone wanted him to do. And yeah, that was Zeb Wells and John Romita Jr.'s The Amazing Spider-Man issue 4. Overall, a very solid issue. I really enjoyed it. I think the whole scenario, the action sequences, first of all, were very well drawn. John Romita Jr. is definitely going up on my list in the Spider-Man artists. I'm not really a fan of his artwork at all times, but I really think that he's doing a very good job with this run, and his action scenes, bar none, are some of the best that the series has seen in the last few years. So, if anything, even if you're not a fan of his art style, his action sequences are very well drawn, and the way he utilizes Spider-Man's webbing as well as his agility a lot in this issue, as well as that page with the black dark room with Spider-Man's colors, his outfit blending in with the darkness, was fantastic and a very unique page, and that's the type of stuff I like to see in comic books, when you do something very unique and bring something unique to the story. So I really enjoyed that, and overall it was just a very solid paced issue, mainly just an action issue, and hopefully issue 5 dives into the whole Spider-Man versus Tombstone battle, so hopefully we get that. And I'm guessing issue 5 and 6 will, as always, usually in these story arcs, mainly be the climax, as this kind of set up a confrontation again between Spider-Man and Tombstone to have their rematch and have their round 2, per se, to their last fight. So that's going to be interesting, and we definitely will be reviewing that on the channel. So if you're new to the channel, this is your first video of me. We are covering The Amazing Spider-Man as it's coming out. We might be a day late, we might have it on the day it comes out, but we are going to be covering it. So if you enjoyed my opinions on the issue, you enjoyed my review, be sure to leave a like and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the Amazing Spider-Man reviews in the future. And yeah, until next video, guys, God bless you. Until next lesson, keep on reading those comments.